Hey there folks, welcome to your weekly glass demo. This is part 2 of the drop dish assembly video where I will show you how I repaired an error that I made and created a new piece out of my first project, which did not go as planned. Here are your supplies. So the fatal mistake I made in my slump tack firing for this piece was not placing that piece of kiln paper underneath where the glass was going to reach the kiln. And there was a spot on the kiln that didn't have some kiln wash, so it was bare. And when it went to cool, remember our kiln shelves and our glass are expanding and contracting at different rates. So a little bit of the glass got stuck as it was dragging on that kiln shelf, and it caused the whole thing to get this huge crack in it. So the bowl isn't cracked upon when holding it, but eventually that crack is going to come out. Either I'm going to bump it the wrong way, or just the heat and the cold from being at a window or wherever it might be will bring that crack out eventually. And so instead of being surprised in the future, I'm going to go ahead and repurpose this piece to be a new bowl. So first I need to remove any and all of the fiber felt or kiln wash or kiln shelf that is stuck to the base of my glass, because I'm going to cut this up and fuse it again. If any of that is left on my glass, it will be stuck there. It's not going to fire away. It'll be trapped and it can leave little marks all over my glass. So first thing I did, like we do with all of our stuff that comes out with some kiln paper on it, is I'm dipping it in our little wash basin here. Notice I did make a boo-boo. I did not wear gloves while using the basin. Please, everybody wear gloves. I have since sterilized this basin. It's been wiped down and is clean for use. But you can use your handy dandy toothbrush and help scrub off any of that extra fiber felt or kiln paper or kiln wash that is on there. I still have some little bits of kiln stuck in the bottom of my dish because it was stuck on the kiln shelf. So I am now going to use a very, very cheap toilet bowl cleaner. It's the $1 stuff from the dollar store. And I'm just using one of my trays and I'm filling it up with some of the toilet bowl cleaner, enough that it's going to touch the bottom. And I also added some little stilts for it. It's just some little scrap pieces of glass. And it's just high enough that there's toilet bowl cleaner touching all over the bottom, and the bowl isn't pushing away all that toilet bowl cleaner, because I want it to be soaking. I don't want it to just have a little bit of toilet bowl cleaner on there and then not get into all the little crevices there. And I let this piece soak for about half an hour because there were just some really nasty chunks in there that I really wanted to make sure would come out. And this is a step that you can do at home. It's just toilet bowl cleaner and a pan, something that can fit your glass. You can do this with your other projects that might come out with a little bit of kiln shelf or kiln paper stuck in them. Only works if it's on the surface of the glass, though. If you've trapped it in between the glass, that's there forever. I'm sorry. But once it's been soaking, I will add a little bit of soap to my handy dandy toothbrush and go ahead and scrub again, making sure that I'm just scrubbing out all those little bits of kiln shelf or kiln paper that are lodged in my glass. Because this is going to be fired again, I want to make sure it is clean because once it's fired again, that stuff will not come out. So I gave it a good scrub, and then you want to dry your piece very, very well and double check it, see if you missed any spots. It can be hard to tell when it's wet, It can kind of mask the kiln paper, so make sure you dry it really, really well. You could even put it aside for a while and come back to it and check and double check to make sure you are free of kiln shelf and paper from your glass. Now that I've got some nice clean glass to work with, I am going to break it up. Now you can do this really quickly just by wrapping this up in some newspaper and giving it a good old whack with a hammer. You can use a hammer in the studio, you just need to use gloves. But if you want to be a little bit more methodical about it, you want to try and get some bigger chunks and not so random, you can use your pistol grip glass cutter, and I just started to cut a ring because I knew that I've already got some breaks in there, so those cracks are going to come out where they are, right? I can't change where those are going to crack, but I can try and get some big chunks out of that base there. So I've just scored it in a circle, and now I'm using the back of my pistol grip to just tap on those score marks in hopes that they will just pop out at least almost where I want them. And you can see I just got some little, I'm just going to keep working at that and use my different tools to break out as many large pieces as I can. And here's error number 2. This video seems to have lots of what not to do involved in it, so I figured I'd just keep going. But we do have these little sweepers available. We've got 4 for everybody to use during class, but we do ask you to use gloves. You might have noticed I forgot, but again, it is something that we are sterilizing less frequently than other tools, so please wear your gloves. I've just put down my cleaning rag here to give myself a little bit more stability while I continue to cut and break off more pieces of my original dish. Alright, so I've cut a new piece of kiln paper and a new circle. This is a 10-inch circle, just clear. Again, you could use any colors that you want. If you want to try a different translucent, you can. It's no big deal, but I wanted to stick with my clear. And I've just got my 2 dots of glue stuck on there. And now I am just going to puzzle piece together my shards of glass. I just took my time. I started with my big pieces and worked my way down to my smaller pieces, just trying to make something that was pleasing to my eyes. You'll notice some of my pieces have curves to them. I want to try and place any of my pieces that have curves with the curvy side down. So like if it was a rainbow, the top of the rainbow would be touching my base sheet of glass. This is to ensure that I don't create more bubbles than I need to or than will naturally occur. If I've got it like an arc on top where, you know, the top of the rainbow is closest to you, then what happens in the kiln is the middle of that piece will fall down and touch the glass first, and it'll create little pockets around it where air will get trapped, and then you'll have more bubbles than probably you planned. So leave it with the curvy side touching your glass, and that will help reduce your bubbles. And I treated this kind of like a mosaic. I left some space in between each piece for the clear to shine through. Some alternative options for you if you want to add some extra firings are to first slump your curvy pieces so you know that they're flat for sure and you won't end up with any bubbles. And then you can use those prefused or flattened pieces to assemble. Another thing you can do is to initially tack fuse this after assembling, and then go back in with some frit into all of the cracks if you really want to highlight all of your cracks. That's another direction you can take this project. I am just going to glue down these pieces where they are. I've left only enough room so that there is a small gap in between everything. Remember that these pieces that I'm adding have already been fused. They're technically already 2 layers thick, so I'm already adding a third layer to this single layer of clear, and that creates a variation where in those gaps it's a single layer, and where I have my pieces it's actually about 3 layers thick. If I leave really, really big gaps, that single layer will pull and be very, very thin, and I don't want a lot of variation in my thick and thin areas. If I've got really large areas of thin spots, I can run into trouble later when it comes to slumping. Thinner areas will heat and cool a lot faster than our thick areas, and if there's too much stress on the glass, that can cause cracks, or when we're dropping these things we could even end up with some holes if they end up stretching too far in the thin areas. All right, and here we have it, our full fused piece. You can see that there is a little bit of texture to it, right, in those ridges where it became thin, but it's not so extreme that I'm worried that it's going to have a hard time when it goes to slump. Also, because it was a single layer underneath, you notice my varied edge where it pulled in where it was a thin 1 layer and it stayed bulgy where it was 3 layers. But I really like that varied edge, that kind of ripple. If you really don't like it, you can take that to one of the grinders and grind it off. This is going to be going into a slump tack, so that will help shine up your edge, or you can put it through another full fuse to round it out. Just remember to use your handy dandy toothbrush to scrub out those edges that have been ground away. And then I'm going to place this on my ring mold, dropout ring mold. Remember, you need your fiber felt, and you can reuse your previous fiber felt if you've already done this once before, or you can cut out a new one. Just check out the first video if you need a refresher on how to cut it out. You're really just tracing. And remember to include a piece of kiln paper. About a 10-inch circle will fit right under this mold and help prevent your glass from sticking to the kiln shelf like it did mine. And here we are, we've finally made it a completed dish with 0 cracks. I am super happy with the final results on this. It seems to be a habit of mine to love the second iteration of anything I make that has broken or failed on me. So this project was definitely a reminder and a lesson for, being accepting of what comes out of the kiln and learning that I can make something new even if my first attempt didn't come out the way I had planned. But thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I can't wait to see what everybody else makes with these ideas. Have a good one. See you in the studio. Pieces coming out, little pellets, little puddles of color. But you can use your handy dandy toothbrush, to use your handy dandy toothbrush